Some say the most dangerous prisons are the ones we don't know we're in. Oblivious to our true state of bondage, we trot along in life ignorantly. For 15 years, I believed I'd found my family in the house of God, but one moment shattered everything. What followed was a transformation so complete, so terrifying. I saw him clearly for the first time, not the charming spiritual man I'd imagined. The church that should have been my refuge had cast me out. Alone and dejected, I began to doubt the whole essence of my faith. I began to question everything I had believed.
What if there is no God, no grand plan? What if we're just tiny creatures on a floating rock in space?
What if? What if? But what if we're wrong? What if there's God? Join me again today as I continue my deeply touching story of how I escaped church darkness and betrayal. They say that in our darkest moments we discover who we truly are. But what happens when that discovery shatters everything you believed about yourself? The pregnancy test slipped from my trembling fingers, clattering against the bathroom tile with a sound that seemed to echo through my empty apartment. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable, undeniable, the final betrayal of my own body against me. It was my first time, my first man, and I had been semi-conscious when it all happened, but there it was, the undeniable product of a man mating a woman. A baby was in my womb. The sacred ground I had protected for 26 years had been violated, and now bore fruit I never asked to carry. For 3 days, I barely left my bed. Food turned to ash in my mouth. Sleep came in fitful bursts, only to be shattered by nightmares of judgment. Faces from church, pointing, whispering, turning away. In each dream, I stood naked before the congregation, my shame visible for all to see. But beneath the suffocating layers of fear and shame, something harder was forming, a desperate determination. I would not be destroyed by this. I could not be. I had to tell Pascal. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial his number. When his voice answered, casual, unaffected, as though our worlds hadn't completely collapsed, something inside me cracked. "I need to see you," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's important." "Not a good time, babe," he replied, the endearment falling from his lips like a mockery. "Got family stuff this weekend."
"Pascal," I said, finding strength I didn't know remained.
"I'm pregnant." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then came a single word, cold as ice. "Where?" Not "are you sure?" Not "how do you feel?" Just "where?" As though I were reporting the location of a car accident rather than a life-altering crisis. We agreed to meet at his place, my suggestion, not his. Public places meant potential witnesses, and something in his voice had triggered an instinct for self-preservation I hadn't known I possessed. His home, the site of my undoing, seemed smaller somehow as I stood on the doorstep, arms wrapped protectively around my still flat stomach. He opened the door without greeting, his expression indifferent. "You're sure?" he demanded, pacing his living room like a caged predator. I nodded, unable to form words beneath the weight of his glare. What followed was a transformation so complete, so terrifying, that I can only describe it as watching someone peel off their human face to reveal something monstrous beneath. "That's impossible," he spat, slamming his fist against the wall with such force that I flinched. It was just that one time." His eyes narrowed, calculation replacing rage. "How do I know it's even mine?" "You've probably been with half the men in your church." The accusation struck like a physical blow. He knew I had been untouched before him. The deliberate cruelty of it stole my breath. "You know that's not true," I whispered, shock rendering me incapable of proper defense. Something shifted in his expression then, the rage giving way to something colder, more calculated, the mask slipping to reveal whatever lay beneath. "Fine. It doesn't matter." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts with casual indifference. "I know a place downtown. My friend runs it. It's quick, discreet. We can have this handled by tomorrow." Handled? The word felt foreign on my tongue. His laugh chilled me to my core. Not the warm chuckle that had once drawn me to him, but something hollow and metallic. "Did you think you were the first?" He glanced up from his phone, something like amusement dancing in his eyes. "You think you're special? That this is my first cleanup?" "Your first—" I couldn't complete the thought, the implication too horrific to voice. "4 times, he said with a shrug, as though discussing how many oil changes his car had needed. "2 of them further along than you. My dad's a pastor, Mabel. You think I can have kids running around? Think about what that would do to his ministry." The room seemed to tilt beneath me, reality shifting into something unrecognizable. This was the man I'd defended to my church family, the one I'd sacrificed everything for. "I'm not getting an abortion," I said, the words emerging with a strength that surprised me. His expression darkened, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. "Don't be stupid, Mabel. What are you going to do? Raise it alone? Go crying back to that church that kicked you out? Tell them how the pastor's son knocked you up?" He stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper that felt like ice water down my spine. "Nobody would believe you anyway. You're the church slut who couldn't keep her legs closed. I'm the pastor's devoted son. Who do you think wins that story?" I had no more doubt who this wolf in sheep's clothing was. Something hollow wearing a convincing mask. Something that might do anything to protect the facade it had created. "I need to think," I managed, backing toward the door, suddenly afraid in a way that went far beyond the emotional pain of betrayal. "Don't think too long," he called after me as I fumbled with the lock. "And don't get any ideas about contacting my father or causing problems. People who try to hurt my family tend to regret it." The threat hung in the air between us, unspoken but unmistakable. I fled into the street, gasping as though I'd been underwater. Only when I was blocks away, heart hammering against my ribs, did I realize I was crying, silent tears streaming down my face, dropping onto my clenched hands. The devastating truth crashed over me in waves. I was completely, utterly alone. The church that should have been my refuge had cast me out. The man who should have stood beside me had revealed himself as a monster, and the God who had promised to never forsake me seemed more distant than the farthest star. What kind of God would allow this? What loving father would watch as his daughter was systematically stripped of everything? Reputation, community, future, and do nothing. The question burned in my chest, igniting something I had never allowed myself to feel before: rage toward my Creator. The walk home was a blur of tears and racing thoughts. Abortion. He wanted me to destroy the life growing inside me, to erase the evidence of his actions, to maintain his carefully constructed facade. Alone in my apartment, I confronted the full gravity of my situation. I was 26, essentially abandoned by my church community, carrying the child of a man who had revealed himself as manipulative and potentially dangerous. My career was finally gaining momentum after years of struggle. My carefully constructed life was collapsing around me. I had never felt more utterly alone. The letter arrived 3 days later, formal church stationery, Pastor Matthew's signature at the bottom. "In light of your continued absence and unrepentant heart regarding your relationship with someone outside our congregation, the leadership has unanimously voted to place you under formal discipline. You are summoned to appear before the Elder Board next Tuesday at 7 p.m. to discuss the terms of your restoration." I laughed until I cried, then cried until I had no tears left. They knew nothing of what had actually happened. The violation, the pregnancy, the complete shattering of my life. Their harshest judgment was being cast simply because I had dared to care for someone from another church. I shuddered to imagine what they would do when they discovered my actual sin if they were already using their strongest discipline measures just because I refused to limit my relationships to their denomination. Where was their concern when I disappeared from services? Where was their shepherd's heart when one of their flock was in crisis? Did anyone even notice I was drowning? The bitter seed that had been planted began to sprout tendrils of resentment, not just toward my church, but toward the entire concept of faith itself. If this was Christianity, this judgmental, controlling, appearance-obsessed system, then perhaps I wanted no part of it. Perhaps the whole thing was an elaborate control mechanism designed to keep people like me in submission. The thought was terrifying yet strangely liberating. When a second letter arrived weeks later, informing me of my formal removal from church membership and delivery to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, citing 1 Corinthians 5:5, I felt nothing but numb detachment. The final severance from my spiritual family should have devastated me. Instead, it felt like confirmation of what I was beginning to suspect. Their love had always been conditional, their truth merely a tool for control. At work, I found unexpected support from my manager, Helena. Religious trauma, she nodded knowingly when I cautiously shared fragments of my story. I've been there. The guilt, the fear, the isolation, it's all by design. Religion is humanity's oldest and most effective system of control. Helena became my lifeline. A single mother herself, successful, confident, and most significantly, an atheist who seemed blissfully unburdened by the moral constraints that had shaped my existence.
What if there is no God, no grand plan? What if we're just tiny creatures on a floating rock in space?
That we're just organisms on a rock hurtling through space? It's terrifying at first, but then liberating. We make our own meaning. We determine our own worth. Her words resonated with the hollow space inside me where faith had once resided. I began devouring the books and podcasts she recommended, prominent atheist authors, skeptic forums discussing the logical inconsistencies of Scripture, the historical abuses of religious institutions. Each new idea felt like breaking free from another chain. If there was no God, or if he existed but was indifferent or cruel, then the suffering in my life wasn't some divine test or mysterious purpose. It was just bad luck, bad choices, bad people. And that meant I could take control, create my own path forward without waiting for divine intervention. I threw myself into my work with renewed focus, determined to prove I didn't need the church, didn't need Pascal, didn't need anyone but myself. My pregnancy progressed, visible now beneath carefully chosen loose clothing. Colleagues were surprisingly supportive, or at least tactfully silent. But in the quietest moments when the apartment fell silent and the distractions of work faded, something unsettling would surface. A persistent sense that I was arguing against a truth I knew at the most fundamental level of my being. He has set eternity in the human heart, whispered a voice from my past, scripture I had memorized years before. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Acts 17, verse 28, I knew indeed that only a fool says in his heart, there is no God. Yet there I was, arguing my way to becoming a full-fledged fool. I would push these thoughts away, drowning them out with podcasts, debunking religious myths, with self-help books on personal empowerment, with anything that would silence the uncomfortable resonance of that still small voice. By my third trimester, I had constructed a reasonably convincing new identity, the strong, independent, secular woman who needed no supernatural crutch to face life's challenges. I would raise this child alone, build my career, create meaning on my own terms. But beneath this carefully crafted mask lay a simpler truth I couldn't admit even to myself. I was terrified of being alone. Work wasn't just ambition, it was escape. The longer hours, the extra projects, the weekend commitments, all of it was just elaborate armor against the crushing silence of my empty apartment, where my thoughts grew too loud to bear and my now frequent sleep paralysis became a reason to dread sleeping. I continued in my newly found passion and faith, or lack of it, until my late third trimester, when another storm was to hit me, one that would shatter every certainty I had so carefully constructed. "You really shouldn't go," Helena warned, eyeing my now prominent belly. "You're due in less than a month, and the site is literally in the middle of nowhere." "I'm fine," I insisted. "I'm not due for 4 weeks. The trip is just for the weekend." What could possibly happen? Our tech team was contracted to establish internet connectivity in a remote village, the kind of place where running water was still considered a luxury and the nearest hospital was 80 miles away across roads that barely deserved the name. We were 6 hours from civilization when I felt the first unmistakable sensation, a warm gush of fluid running down my legs as we stood in the dusty clearing that would house our satellite equipment. "Oh God," I whispered, the irony of my instinctive prayer lost in the sudden grip of panic. Michael, our team lead, tried to maintain calm. "We need to get you back to the city, now." But the contractions were now far more intense than the irregular twinges I'd been experiencing for the past couple of weeks. My doctor had assured me those early contractions were normal as I neared term, nothing to worry about. But these were different, fierce, insistent waves that left me gasping. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here, not now, not like this. "It's too fast," I managed between contractions that were already coming every 5 minutes. "The baby's coming." Michael made the decision to drive back towards cell reception, leaving me with Ruth, another team member who had basic first aid training but looked as terrified as I felt. "He'll be back with help soon," Ruth assured me, though her voice trembled. "Just try to breathe through it." 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. The contractions intensified, now coming every 3 minutes. Darkness was falling. We had no proper medical supplies, limited water, and no way to communicate with the outside world. "Something's wrong," Ruth finally admitted, her face pale in the beam of our emergency flashlight. "Michael should have been back by now." The unspoken fear hung between us, the dangerous roads, the absolute darkness, the countless things that could go wrong. "I need to find help," Ruth decided as my condition deteriorated. "There has to be someone living nearby, a local with a vehicle, a midwife, anyone." The thought of being left completely alone was terrifying, but we had run out of options. Ruth promised to return as quickly as possible and disappeared into the darkness. Actually, I was already at the gates of death. I could feel a little creature making its way down my womb with my pelvic muscles expanding very painfully to allow passage. My thoughts were clouded. Ruth had been gone for about 10 minutes. By this time, I knew I wasn't going to make it, nor was my baby. I looked up into heaven with my eyes closed, drawing my last breaths. I thought to myself, it's time to tell yourself the truth. Here is death facing you. Are you sure there is no God? Are you sure there is no hell? Can you say you are sure this is where it all ends? Can you deny you know in your heart there is a life hereafter? I knew the answers. I had always known, despite my arguments, despite my anger and resentment, despite my questions. I had always known there is God, and He is good. Finally, for the first time in 9 months, I prayed.
Mabel's world is collapsing, trapped in pain and with time running out. Will the baby survive? And what about the haunting nightmares from part 1 and the chilling hints in part 2's opening? Were they warnings, or something far worse? Don't miss season 3 to uncover the truth. Subscribe, drop your theories in the comments, like and share. The countdown to answers has begun.